Hello, everybody, and welcome back once again to the Hey, Are You Still There podcast. This is Mike, and I'm running solo once again. If you were following along on our social media post over the last 12 days, you will see that our family took a little bit of a vacation. Beth and myself and Maria and Joshua went to Europe. We left on Wednesday, I think it was like June the 3rd. Josh and I got back Saturday, which was the 13th. Sorry, we got back on the 13th that night. We came on home. We left Beth and Maria there. Maria's birthday was Sunday the 14th, and she wanted to do Disneyland Paris for her birthday. And so after we finished the main trip, Josh and I headed home and left the girls to go have a little additional time to themselves at Disneyland Paris. That was not on the original agenda, but when Maria found out that she was not going to be getting an internship this summer and she was going to be staying at home and working, it kind of opened up for her to be able to go on the trip with us. And then this was added on. So yeah, we've been gone, which is why last week's episode was a pre-recorded episode where I debuted some songs that I had written, along with updating the Big 12. So anyway, last week's episode, that's what that was. But now we're back. I'm back. And so I can kind of really update people on life and how it goes. We had an awesome trip. And when Beth gets back, we'll talk more about it. I'm sure we're going to do some travel special episodes. We've done this before when we've gone to other countries, whether it's Roatan or Antigua, Jamaica. I think last year we also did it on, Austria and Poland and the Czech Republic. We went over there. So we do these kind of like pop-up standalones, and some people like them. So, if you're interested in travel and maybe going to those countries or just want to hear about the culture, that's fine. Some other listeners are like, I don't really care. And that's fine. I get it. So when Beth gets back, I'm sure we'll talk very broadly about our trip, and she can update us on her and Maria's time at Disneyland Paris. Maria, her birthday on the 14th, she turned 21. So I'm sure they've had a good time. But today is just me. So I get to kind of talk a little bit about all kinds of stuff. And so I've got a few things that are on my mind that I do want to talk about, and I think are interesting, at least to me. Let's see here. Yeah, so Maria's turned 21. So now we have Jacob, who is 22. He will be 23 in August. Maria's 21. I don't know how I feel about having two kids that old right now. Like, I don't feel that old. I'm 51. I'll be 52 in August. I don't feel old enough to have kids that are 21 and 23, but soon I will. And so I don't know. It's just a different stage of life. It is what it is, but it's a different experience. Beth and I have talked about this when you travel with adult children versus when they were young. It just changes the dynamics a little bit. It makes it, in a lot of ways, easier. It's a lot easier in some ways, because you're not juggling kids and naps and bedtimes and independence and whatever, you can just kind of, or lack thereof, you kind of let your adult kids just go. And so we went. So Maria's older and I feel older, I guess, when I look at it on paper, but I don't feel older. I still, I felt old on this trip. I came home and I told Josh, I can travel with Beth. I can travel with Maria. I do not think I can anymore travel with Beth and Maria. They go 100 miles an hour. They feed off of each other. If one's going 100 miles an hour, the other one wants to go 150. And if one's going 150 miles an hour, the other one wants to go 200. I can't keep up. I'll admit it. I just cannot keep up. I looked at my Apple Watch stats and my Apple iPhone, and kind of looked and just to kind of see what the difference was in my activity level on this trip versus normal. In 2026, my average steps per day are like 5,400. Well, something like that. So 5,400 steps a day is normally what I get in, on any given day. My average steps per day on the 11 days of this trip that I was on was 16,000. So I went from 5,000 steps a day to 16,000 steps a day. And on top of that, if you look at like flights of steps, because it keeps that up on your watch too, on your Apple Watch, I was doing like 30 to 40 flights of stairs every day, when you include not just the steps, but the hills and everywhere where they had us walking up and down and all over the place. I mean, I was dying. I was physically, like, my legs, my hips, my knees, my back. I'm an old man. Like, I felt physically old on this trip. Mentally, emotionally, I still feel young, but man, I was worn out. And, they would stop and make fun of me, but I was just like, you've got to give me some time to rest. But Josh said he felt the same way. And Josh is not an out of shape kid. He's a 16-year-old, but he was like, we need a slower paced vacation next time. And I admit, so I'll be honest, between you and I don't know if I can do another trip with Beth and Maria, something like this. They're already talking about Norway or something in 2027. And I'm just going to have to be like, go for it. Like, I'm staying home. I'm sitting that one out. Like, it's been now, gosh, I don't know how long. It's well over a year, maybe 18 months since I took a vacation where I could just sit. I think it may have been when Beth and I went to Antigua, which would have been like February of last year or something. I don't even remember, but where you could just sit on the beach and just rest and relax and recharge. And, Beth's been asking me already about other trips. And I told her, I was like, I am not planning another vacation until I get one where I can put my butt in the sand. Like, that's just it. Like, I just need somewhere just to sit and rest for a little bit. My sabbatical started June the 1st. And I knew I had this trip coming up June the 3rd. And so people were asking me like, oh, are you excited about starting your sabbatical? No, I wasn't, because I knew what was coming. I wasn't blindsided by this. I knew that this was the trip, that it was going to be what it was. So I don't do well being away from home that long. It was about 2 days too long for me. I think 9 days, 8 to 9 days is my max for a trip. This one, we were there for 11, I think it was, Josh and I, and Beth and them will be there 2 weeks, something like that. But anyway, it was just kind of, it was exhausting. And so once I got home, then I kind of felt like, all right, now I can actually start my sabbatical. Now I can actually start resting a little bit. And that's what I've tried to do. So we got home. Josh and I got home late. I won't say late. It was like 6 o'clock. We could be pulled in the driveway Saturday night. And, it felt like midnight to us because all the countries we went to, we started in Hungary, in Budapest. We started there. From there, we went to the Czech Republic. Then we went to Austria, from Austria, Germany. So we stayed in 4 different hotels, which is a lot of movement. I mean, that's a lot of you get unpacked, you get settled, and then you're packing back up again and going. We took every mode of transportation possible. Planes, trains, buses, automobiles, and even a boat. So we did everything. And so we got home, and so we're home, and it's 6 o'clock here on the East Coast, 12 o'clock. Our bodies think it is, and we went ahead and just powered through and just said, all right, let's just go ahead and unpack, get some laundry going, shower, try to stay up until maybe 9, which is what we kind of shot for because we were dying. And we did. I think we made it till about 8:30 or 9, and then we both went to bed and slept really well. Got up Sunday, jumped right back into my rhythm of getting up and heading to Panera Bread, getting a coffee, just kind of sitting there, kind of getting back in my rhythm, enjoying a Sunday with no responsibilities. Because even the Sundays that I miss at church, I'm usually doing something. It's a mission trip or something else is going on. So it felt really weird this Sunday to be in shorts and a t-shirt and flops and sitting at Panera and not even thinking about, or not having to think about, going to church. So, yeah. So that afternoon, Sunday afternoon, it was a kind of a strange time for this, but Taylor Baden and myself had another praise and punchline show. We were invited to come play and perform at, it's called the Muddy Creek Listening Room. And in Winston-Salem, there's a place called the Muddy Creek Cafe. It's old, it's famous, it's been around forever. They have 2 locations. They have one in Old Salem, which where it sits is right across the lawn from Salem College, where Beth graduated from. So, I mean, it's right there. I mean, I could stand there at the front door of this place and look across and see Beth's dorm where she was her senior year, and see her office where she worked when she worked at Salem for a couple of years. And so it was kind of surreal to be there at Old Salem and to be there right there at Salem College doing a show. But they have the location there at Old Salem. They have another one in Allegheny County in a little town called Sparta. But the one in Winston at Old Salem, they have a little room. I mean, it's intimate. It might seat 50 people. You know, it'd be cramped, but you could probably get 50 chairs in there. But they call it the listening room. And on Friday nights and Sunday afternoons, they have performances. And so they asked Taylor and I to come do praise and punchlines Sunday afternoon at 2, and that's what we did. And so it was kind of different to do a comedy show at 2:00 on a Sunday afternoon. Usually, most Sundays at 2, I am laying on the bed taking a nap. So it was kind of different. It went well. It was the people who were there. There wasn't a lot of them. It was a sparse crowd, but the ones who were there seemed to enjoy it. They laughed a lot and they clapped a lot for Taylor. And so they seemed very engaged. But for me right now, like, I didn't mind it only being a smaller crowd, because I just want reps. I just want a chance to keep working out some of these stories and such. Even though I've told these stories before, like I said, I've told these stories in sermons in the past. I've used these stories as sermon illustrations, and I like to use comedy in my sermons and telling a funny story. I think it helps connect with folks, and I've had success with that. And so now I'm just kind of removing the biblical principles of it and stuff, and just trying to focus just on the story. But there's a comedic timing that is not natural. And that's what I'm trying to get down. I mean, it's one thing to tell a story in a sermon where I can interject certain things or have a certain pacing because it's different when you're preaching. But here it's, you want to keep people engaged with a comedic mindset. I can start telling a story, pause for a second, interject something serious, go back to the story. When I'm preaching, you can kind of have that back and forth. Here, that's not what people are here for. They want to be entertained. They want to laugh. And so it's, all right, now I just got to tighten the story up and tell it in a way that gives room to breathe, where people can laugh, and I can tell it in a way that hopefully people find it humorous. And they did. It was a good show. And everybody who was there, I think, came up to me afterwards and just talked about how funny they thought I was and how good the show was. And it was fun. So another show, another chance to kind of work on that and get that, continue to work on those reps and things. My next performance will be this coming Saturday, and that's going to be June the 20th, Saturday night, June the 20th, at the Idiot Box in Greensboro, 9:30 p.m. It's round 2 of the Ultimate Comic Challenge. So we'll see. I mean, obviously I don't know how many they had. I think they had somewhere between 90 and 100, I think, comics in this thing. And after the first round, that was cut in half. And after this round, it'll be cut in half again. So So, it's competition's getting tighter. We'll see. I didn't think I'd make it out of the first round, and I did. So we'll see what happens this coming Saturday if I make it out or not. But that'd be pretty spectacular if I did. And so that'd be fun. So I have that coming up Saturday the 20th, and then Saturday the 27th, I have a show at Truist Stadium, which is where the Winston-Salem Dash, our minor league baseball team, where they play. They're not in town that week, so the ballpark is putting on a special event where it's like you can buy a ticket and you get like a buffet dinner, and then there's like a comedy show afterwards. And so I've been asked to be the opener. There's only 2 of us, and so I'll be opening up. They want me to do 30 minutes, which will be the longest I've ever done. This past Sunday, I think I went for about 20 minutes. That was probably the longest I've gone so far. And when I do the Ultimate Comic Challenge stuff or the things that I do at the Idiot Box, those are like 5-minute sets. So you just get up for 5 minutes, do your thing, and sit down. So when the praise and punchlines before was around, I think I did 12 minutes the first time, and then I was able to do around 15, and now I'm up to like 20. So that's kind of my sweet spot. I think for praise and punchlines anyway, I want to keep it around 20 minutes because I don't want the whole show to be long. Like Taylor goes for about an hour with his music. So I'm like, if we can get people out an hour and 20 minutes, I think they're happy with that, especially with the amount of money they pay. That seems to be just right. But 30 minutes on the 27th of June there at Truist Ballpark. So I'll have that going on. So that's kind of the comedy recap. What else happened this weekend before I dive into a little bit of travel things that I noted? So they had the UFC fight at the White House. This was quite controversial, more controversial than I thought it was going to be. I used to be a huge UFC fan. 15 years ago, I watched everything I could watch UFC, the Ultimate Fighting Championship. I loved it. And I remember as a teenager, me and my buddies, we would go to Blockbuster and get the VHS of the UFC 1, UFC 2, UFC 3, when there were really no weight classes and you had kind of that, or even as it progressed and you had kind of the Tank Abbotts and the Dan Severns and Ken Shamrock and people like that, who were in it all the way up to like Brock Lesnar, 15 years ago or whatever it's been now when he was heavyweight champion. I used to love it. And then I just stopped, honestly, for me, sports are not nearly as important as they used to be. I used to be this rabid sports fan. And if my team lost, I carried the weight of that on me emotionally. And it got to the point, I think when you start having kids and life and things start happening, that you realize that sports should be an escape. It should be something that you enjoy. And if I'm watching something and when my team loses, it causes me stress, well, that's not enjoyable. And why am I stressed? I don't have anything invested in that team. I'm not on the ownership. I'm not a player. There's nothing. Whether they win or lose doesn't change my life at all. And I think when I'm matured enough to realize that I can, let's say the Atlanta Braves. I am a huge Atlanta Braves fan. I have been for 40 years. It's like if they win, I am happy. And if they lose, I just shrug it off now. And I'm like, you know what? That's great. They'll win again next time, hopefully. The Hurricanes just won the NHL Stanley Cup. I'm thrilled. I'm pulled for the Hurricanes. They're here in North Carolina. But win or lose, it wasn't going to affect my life any. And that's kind of how I've been about sports. And so UFC kind of fell into that. It was kind of a niche sport anyway. I think I kind of went from pro wrestling to UFC, and then just to kind of scratch that itch. And then I kind of, dropped out of both. And then when Maria when she got into pro wrestling, I kind of picked it back up again and started following it with her. And so I really have not watched UFC in a long time. I couldn't tell you a champion. I don't know anything about them. But I know they were doing this big fight at the White House. And I know it became very controversial because there was a lot of, as I learned over the last several weeks, misinformation. There was people who are very anti our current administration, anti-Donald Trump, as they would say, MAGA. They were putting stuff out there like, I can't believe our tax dollars are paying for this. And I thought it was crazy too. I'm like, why are we paying for this? And then I started doing some research and realized the taxpayers didn't pay a dime, that UFC paid 100% of everything that happened, that all the White House did was provide the front lawn. But I think estimates were that UFC, it cost them around $60 million to put this thing on. And they said afterwards, it exceeded every expectation. It beat every metric, whatever those metrics were. It beat every metric that they had anticipated. But they said, we'll never do this again because it cost us so much money. And so there you go. So people let their politics and their opinions kind of get fired up and get involved, and people, and I'm sure there's bots and plants, and I believe all of that, that are out there on social media that love getting stuff stirred up, and they do that by putting out false information. And so there's a lot of controversy about this. Now, you could argue, I don't know, should they be having a sporting event on the front lawn of the White House? Who knows? It was done under the umbrella of the Constitution's 250th anniversary, from 1776 to now, it's America's 250 years of the signing of the Declaration of Independence. And this was just one event of many that they're having this summer in DC and around the country. And it was, I don't know, I wasn't going to watch it, but I didn't have much else to do last night, and I was just kind of chilling out. So I turned it on because I wanted to see what it looked like. Like, let's just see what this is. And I ain't gonna lie, I got sucked in. It was really well done. It did not feel political. They would show Donald Trump at times only when a fighter would maybe go over and shake his hand. He sat on the front row, but the camera was never on him. It wasn't like on him looking at his reactions. Obviously, the White House was there in the background. The Blue Angels flew over. It was just an impressive, goodness, it's pretty crazy the way it looked. It looked great. And our military was there, and the military band was there playing the intro music to all these people that were coming out. In between the fights, they had these very patriotic videos, highlighting different things that have happened in America's history in the last 250 years. It was pretty cool. And I'm not it sounds bad to say I'm not a patriotic guy. I love our country, especially when you travel around the world. I know that when we live and we don't go anywhere else but America, it's easy to beat up on America and look at all the bad that goes on in the U.S., but you go to other countries and you realize how well we have it. And so, I love our country, but I'm not someone, you're not going to find an American flag hanging outside our house. That's what I mean by I'm not like overtly patriotic. I'm not wearing flag shirts or whatnot or whatever it may be, but it was really cool last night. Like, I watched it was late. It went on. I didn't even finish it. I stayed up. I think it came on. It was supposed to come on at 8. They had a little bit of weather delays, so I think it started about 45 minutes late. I was able to stay up till about midnight, and I was dead. I went on to bed, and so I missed the last couple of matches, which was the main event. But just the stuff I watched was really well done. So kudos to UFC, and it was cool. It was quite the spectacle, and it was not political what everybody wants to make it out to be. And that's what, I was reading stuff today. Like, there were certain celebrities who were there in attendance, and Beth and I just talked on the last podcast she was on with. We got to go see Nate Bargatze. Nate is as clean as you can possibly be. Nate is the most famous stand-up comedian in America today. His current tour broke the record for most ticket sales ever for a comedy tour. It's like a couple weeks ago. I mean, he's huge. He's hosted Saturday Night Live. He has these podcasts. He's opening up a theme park. I mean, the guy is squeaky clean. He just had a movie come out a few weeks ago called The Breadwinner. I have not seen it yet. I will watch it at some point. But he's so clean that even the critics, when they were criticizing that movie, said that The Breadwinner made Father Knows Best look edgy. Like, he's so, just clean. And so he was at the event last night, and this morning and today on social media, he's been just getting bombed by different people. I follow some of the stand-up comedy stuff, and different comedians are like, I'll never respect that guy again for going to that. And I'm like, is that what we're doing now? Like, we're canceling people because they went to a sporting event just because you may not like the president, or you don't like where it was at, or you hate our country. It's so stupid. Like, can we not just entertain ourselves and enjoy something without it being political? Like, gosh, it just gets on my last nerve. And yeah, one of the bozos on Threads wrote something like that. And I fired off a comment, and I had to turn around and go back and delete it because I'm like, I was just like, this guy's an idiot. Like, what are you talking about here? I mean, it's so stupid. But yeah, so there were celebrities. You can't do nothing. There's nothing you can do nowadays that you're not under the microscope, and you have these morons that are wanting to punch up at you or punch down to you if they feel like you're down, just to try to pick it apart because they want to connect dots that aren't there. Nate's a massive sports fan. He talks about sports all the time. He goes to all kinds of sporting events. He's done all this sporting stuff. And I'm telling you, if you were invited to go sit at the White House lawn and watch this, these people who are complaining, they wouldn't turn it down. There was, I don't know how long ago it's been now. It's been maybe 2010, 2011. I don't know. George W. Bush was president. That's how long ago it was. So GW was president, and he came to Kernersville. He came to Kernersville and was going to tour. We have a big plant in Kernersville, North Carolina, that at the time was a combo plant of John Deere and Hitachi. Hitachi's another, tractor company, for lack of a better term. So they had this Deere Hitachi plant. It was the only one of its kind in the world. And so Bush came to Kernersville to tour it, and then was going to give a speech and just talk about how companies can work together, what have you. Well, I guess the powers that be that were putting it together wanted to have some community figures attend it. And so for whatever reason, I got invited. And so I got to go tour the Deere Hitachi plant. There was about 6 or 8 of us that were chosen by the White House. We had to go through. It was just wild. I got a call from someone, and they said, hey, I'm so-and-so. I'm from the White House. I'm going to need all this information from you so we can do a background check. I mean, it's like the White House called me. Who am I? And so I gave them all the information. I passed, whatever. So there was 6 or 8 of us. We got to tour the plant with the president of the United States of America. And then when he went to give his speech, we sat on the front row, right there. He was on stage. It was unbelievable. And then when he finished, he walked off the stage and came around and was shaking hands and shook my hand and looked right at me and said, thank you for coming today. And he didn't know me from Adam, but it was a president. Who else? It's I don't know I literally do not know anybody else that I know personally that has said, I shook the hand of a sitting or former president. And maybe they have, and they just haven't told me, but so be it. But regardless of how I felt about George W. Bush, it didn't matter if it was George Sr., George Jr., Clinton, Obama. I wouldn't have cared. The fact that I was personally invited by the White House to come be part of this event where I got to walk with the president of the United States of America, and I got to sit there like 5 feet from him as he was giving his speech, and then he shook my hand at the end of it. Politics doesn't matter. Like, that's pretty darn cool. And for anybody on this planet to say, or at least I'll just say in our country, for anybody in our country to say, I would never accept that. I would never go do that. Wait, you're a moron. I'm sorry. Like, that's so stupid. Like, regardless of how you feel about them politically, like, that's a moment in time and a story that very few people get. And if you want to like rob yourself of that, like Nate Bargatze or any of those celebrities to say, yeah, I was invited to the White House to watch this once in a lifetime event. It's never going to happen again. It's never has happened. Never will happen again. I was invited and I just said no because I don't really like that guy. What are you doing? Like, life's too short. Like, what's that stance going to do? They're just going to fill your seat with somebody else. They don't care. You're a peon. So, like, go and enjoy it. Like, have that moment and have that experience. But, yeah, I don't know. It kind of has rubbed me the wrong way today. And you know, there was guys from the WWE there last night. Roman Reigns was there. And people were criticizing Roman Reigns. And, you know, I'm like, he's a pro wrestler. Who cares? Like, he was there. Like, literally the WWE and UFC are owned by the same company. They're both owned by TKO. So it kind of makes sense that he would be there, that they would want him there. But to criticize somebody for just going to a sporting event, I mean, that's where we're at now in our country. And it is just stupid. Just stupid. I guess in staying on this kind of political America and what we're kind of viewed at, there's a couple of things I kind of jotted down as I was flying back that I wanted to talk about today. And one of the things that I wrote down, and it actually came up yesterday, I wrote down, the world doesn't hate us. They don't. Like, if you listen to the media in America, they literally say things like, the world is laughing at us. Like the world, you know, they hate our country. They hate our politics. They hate our president. They don't. Like, they just don't. We were over last year, Beth and I went, and Josh, and we spent, you know, whatever it was, 10 days and hitting some countries and having conversations with people. And never once did anybody say anything negative. In fact, a couple of times last year, we actually had people say, I wish Donald Trump was our president. Now, I ain't going to agree with that. Like, I ain't going to wish that on anybody. I mean, it's like, yeah, you vote for who you want to vote for, whatever. But there's no hate. There's none of that. And we felt the same thing this time. Like, in all the countries we went and everywhere we went, when people and everyone wanted to talk to us about America, you know, where we were from, what it was like, all this stuff. Nobody brought up politics. Nobody brought up anything. We felt nothing but love. And every time people were like, oh, one day I hope I can go to America and visit it. One day I hope I can go to your state. I hope I can go see this. You know, there's this idea that our news media here in the U.S., whether it's, you know, on television, CNN, NBC, ABC, whatever, or it's online or whatever it may be, podcast, they're just rage baiting you. That's all they're doing. They're making stuff up to make you feel a certain way. Our world does not hate us. Yesterday, I have a couple of booths where I sell comics. And so obviously I had not been at my one booth both booths for 11 or 12 days. And so I stopped by yesterday before I did my comedy show just to check on the booth and straighten some things up. And one of the owners came over to me and he was like, "Hey, hadn't seen you in a while." And I was like, "Yeah, I was out of the country." He said, "Where'd you go?" And I told him, and he was like, he said, "Let me ask you something." He was like, "How bad was it for y'all over there?" He's like, I want to go over to Europe. I have a friend that's been wanting to go and he's asked me to go with him. He's like, and he was like, he was like, "I don't want to go over there and be like bullied or anything." I'm like, and I had to tell him, I'm like, "No, there's none of that. Go to other countries, go to Europe, go wherever. You're not going to get bullied because you're an American. It's just not happening." It's just so stupid. But the world doesn't hate us. They just don't. Like I said, there's powers that be somewhere that want us to think, and they want to drive division within our country. And they want us to fight over a sporting event, as stupid as that is, and fight over people who were in attendance, as stupid as that is. But it's not true. It's like, why are we getting baited into this? It just doesn't make sense. I was not planning on going on a UFC rant, so sorry about that. But it kind of was something that kind of happened last night and today that was kind of grabbed my attention. You know what? Since I'm kind of, I guess, in an argumentative mood right now, I'll share another story with you. I had my first ever argument with a airline employee. I have traveled a bunch in my life, and there's good airline employees and there's some that are just sour. It's like that in life. No matter where you go, you're going to find cashier. One may be happy, one's upset about something. And I don't hold it against them. I don't know what's going on in their life. Who knows what? So when somebody has a bad attitude, somewhere, I really try not to judge that. I just don't know what's going on in their life. But it does bother me when employees do things that I know don't follow the rules. And here's what I mean by that. And this is where the argument came in at. So we had doubled, tripled, quadruple checked our bags to make sure that our bags, we tried to do all carry-ons. So that's what we did. We had 4 carry-on suitcases. We had 4 backpacks. So you're allowed 1 carry-on, 1 personal item. That's what we were going to do. That's what we were going to take for the whole trip. So that's the plan. So we have this one bag that when it is unzipped and expanded, and those of you who travel, you know what that means. You kind of have the double zipper, but you can expand it. When it's expanded, it still meets the necessary requirements. Whatever those requirements are, I forgot what they are. I think it's 14 by 11 by 9, something like that. When it's zipped up, it's smaller than regulation. It's fine. And that's one of the reasons we bought it, is if we needed something smaller, then we could just grab that. And if we needed to expand it, well, it was the size of a normal carry-on. So we get there, we get to the airport in Greensboro. We're getting ready to board the plane. It's American Airlines. And we're getting ready to go on. And this girl comes over from American Airlines and she says, "Sir, you're going to have to zip up your bag." And she says that to me because it's my bag. And I said, and I explained to her, I said, "Well, it's the right size." I said, "I know it's unzipped, but unzipped is the right size." And they even had the little thing where you could go and put it inside. They have these things at the counter where it's put your bag in here. If it doesn't fit, then it won't fit in the overhead compartment and you're going to have to pay to check it. I said, "I can take it over there and put it in there." I said, "It's the right size." And she said, "No." She was like, "It is American airline policy that all bags must be zipped." I said, "No, it is not." That is not their policy. Their policy is it has to be this size, 14 by 11 by 9. It has nothing to do with zipped or unzipped. It's like, this is the maximum size. And I said, that's what this is. This is the right size to go. It will fit. I promise you. I will put it in this little thing. I will show you. And she started getting really angry. She's like, no, sir, that is the policy. It must be zipped. I am not letting you on this plane unless it's zipped. So then Beth was like, let me just try to zip it. This thing was full. I mean, I wasn't even sure if we even could zip it. So Beth literally had to sit on it, and I was zipping it up. And Maria and Josh were like, what are y'all doing? And I was like, we're having to zip it because this lady doesn't know her own, like, rules. And then the lady starts to, like, of course, I'll admit, I'm saying this passively aggressively. I'm saying it to my kids with this woman in earshot. And so then she's like, sir, that is not. And I said, I'm not even talking to you. I'm talking to my kids. And she was like, well, sir, I said, I am not talking to you anymore. I have my suitcase zipped. I'm going in. Do not talk to me again. And the lady was like, then the lady turned around to, like, the person doing at the counter, and she was like, make an announcement again. Everybody, make an announcement. Everybody's suitcase has to be zipped. Make an announcement. And that person was like, and I'm like, that's what made me angry, is this was her rule. And it was her misinterpretation of the rule. Like, it wasn't just her having a bad day. It was her being a bad employee. And so we went along, but I was just steaming after that. Like it's like I said, I show people a lot of grace that are at work, and I just couldn't with this chick. Like, she drove me crazy. Like, it was her lack of knowledge and her lack of interpretation of the rule and misinterpretation of what the suitcase could be that delayed me getting on. And it just was just like, ugh, I don't know. I shouldn't know your job better than you do, and you're getting paid and I'm not. So anyway, that's that. So I talked about how America is kind of viewed more favorably than we're led to believe. But Josh and I talked about this on the flight home. Out of the 4 countries that we went to, we kind of came up, we said, okay, well, who was the nicest? And it's not that the 4th place was not nice. It was just that, like, all right, this group of people were really nice. And it kind of goes 1, 2, 3, 4. And 4th was still nice, but they weren't like number 1. And so we ranked who we thought was the 4 nicest countries out of the 4 that we went. I'll just start with the bottom. Number 4, Germany. And that probably comes as a surprise to no one. Germans are hard people. They've had a hard life. They have a hard history. They've been on the losing side of 2 world wars. Like, it's just their culture. I mean, they were pleasant. They were nice, but they're not warm and fuzzy nice. They were okay. But so Germany, we thought was number 4. Number 3, we said the Czech Republic. Again, the Czechs kind of have a little bit of that history with Russia and being occupied and all that. And so maybe there's still some of that there. The Czech was really hit or miss. There were some people that were just over the top nice. And then there were some people that were just kind of, I don't know, they were just there. It's kind of, you're here, whatever. Second, we thought Austria. Austrian people were very nice. They were very nice last year. Vienna, probably in major European cities, Vienna is probably my favorite city, I will say, that I've visited. And Austria is really nice. This time we didn't go to Vienna. We went to Salzburg, Austria, which is kind of the opposite end of the country, a little bit more west. Or I guess I don't know, my geography is super great, but I think that's right. But they were nice. We had a great time in Salzburg. I thought, and people there were super nice. And so that leaves number 1. Josh and I both thought the nicest people were the ones from Hungary. They were super nice. We stayed in Budapest, like I said. I learned some things on this trip. First of all, it's not Budapest. Like, I don't know, maybe it's because I'm from the South and I see it spelled out that way. And I'm like, oh, it's Budapest. But it's not. It's the ST is actually pronounced SH. So it's Budapest. And so I got to correct myself now in saying that. So And I'm going to be completely honest, you're going to think I'm an idiot. I've never really paid attention to the spelling of hungry. I always thought it was hungry. Like, I'm hungry. Give me something to eat. But there's actually an extra A in there. So it's Hungary. Hungary. And so we say it in Budapest, Hungary. So I was totally wrong and Southern idiot, and I'll admit it. Another thing I didn't know, and I don't think any of us did, Budapest originally was two cities. There's a river that runs through it. I should know it. The Danube. I forgot. I'm blanking right now. Sorry. Blame it still on jet lag. But there's a river that runs right through the middle of the city. But at one point, Pest was on one side and Buda was on the other side. And at some point in history, they combined into one city, Budapest. So we call it Budapest, those who are visiting. But if you're there and people will say, have you been over to Buda? Are you staying in Pest? Like, it's still very like it's like neighborhoods almost. It's like, what side of the river are you? They use that to kind of identify where you're going. But it was great. I mean, the city was really cool. I know some people think Budapest is their favorite city in Europe, and it was a good city. I'm not going to say it's my favorite. I liked the Buda part better. I felt a little bit more slower, much more historic. The Pest side it also had a lot of history, but it was hopping. I mean, it was super busy. It was kind of like it was a city. And so we thought the people of Hungary were extremely nice, and we loved everybody who we met there. And while we were at it, we just said, all right, let's talk about food. Where was the best food out of the four? So number 4, we said the Czech Republic. And we said that because Josh and I both sat there and we were like, what did we even eat in the Czech Republic? And we honestly couldn't remember. So whatever we ate, it wasn't bad, but it wasn't memorable. Like, it was nothing that was like, oh my gosh, this meal I'll remember for the rest of my life. And so the food was good. It was not like the food is bad in the Czech Republic, but there was nothing that we ate that was like earth-shattering. 3rd, we said Austria. And it was kind of the same thing. Like, we could think about some Austrian places we ate, but it wasn't like there was anything that was like, oh, that was fantastic. 2nd, we said Germany. There was definitely a place we ate in Germany that we were both like, that place was a banger. Like, that one spot was great. And then, so number 1 for us, Hungary. There was a couple places there in Hungary on the Buda side and the Pest side that we were able to recall and say that was a good place. And that meant something because, man, that was at the very first of the trip. Like, we started in Hungary and worked our way through to Germany. And so you would have thought like it would be the farthest from our minds. And so that meant something. We're like, if we're still remembering this, a week and a half later, then that was a pretty good meal. And so we were both like, when we didn't know this going into it, but Hungary won. I mean, it's a 2-time champion. It won for who we thought were the nicest people, and it also won for the best food. So if you are looking for, a place to go in Europe with good food, good people, rich history, Budapest is the place. I mean, it really is. It's affordable. It was probably the most affordable out of all the countries, as far as eating and drinking and sightseeing. This stuff was all just very affordable. And so anyway, I say all that to say you'll hear more about that when Beth comes back. But other than that, I probably have talked enough. I am back. Beth will be back here in a couple of days, and then sometime over the weekend or whatever. Probably it'll be after the second round of the Ultimate Comic Challenge, because I guess they'll let me know Sunday morning if I made it or not. And so after that, we'll record the podcast and we can update everybody. But if you're in the Triad, if you're around the Greensboro, High Point, Winston-Salem area, and you're free Saturday night, June the 20th, come on out, 9:30 p.m. to the Idiot Box in downtown Greensboro. Would love to have you there. I'll be doing, this time I think it's a 6-minute bit is how long we can go. So I've got 6 minutes I'm going to be competing with about 10 or 11 other comics. The top 6 or 5 or 6 make it on to the next round. So anyway, if you can't make it there, then, say a little prayer for me. That'd be great. Other than that, thank you so much for listening. Follow us online, follow us on Facebook, on our Hey Are You Still There page. You can follow us on our website, heyareyoustillthere.com. You can buy our books. I have 2 books out. Beth has a book out. You can go to Amazon and look those up. Michael Giannopoulos and Beth Giannopoulos. You can support us that way. Other than that, just, hey, thank you so much for just being our friends, for being our listening audience, and for tuning in each week. We really appreciate it. Until next time, this has been Mike, and this has been Hey, Are You Still There?